Hey guys, I'd like to thank Speakfriends Microphone Cables for sponsoring this video. More about them later. Alright guys, today I get to demo for you this beautiful amp right here, and the coolest part about this amp is I actually built it myself. It is a clone of a vintage Fender 6L6 style amp like a Hot Rod Deluxe or Hot Rod DeVille, but with a few more bells and whistles. Now, I built it from a kit, of course, so if you didn't see that review, you definitely need to check out my original review of the kit. But today I'm going to show you how I built this enclosure to match my speaker cab that I built a couple of months ago, and a few little upgrades that I did to it to make it sound just a little bit better. If that sounds like something you're interested, stick around. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, let's get started. Okay, firstly, I want to address a concern that you guys had with my original kit review. A lot of you guys mentioned that you thought you saw one of my tubes hot plating in my amp while I was demoing it for you. And I didn't notice it at the time, and I went back and I reviewed the footage, and I can totally see why you guys think that that was happening, but I could never replicate the issue. I mean, I turned on this amp and cranked it hard for a couple of hours in the dark to try to get one of the tubes to burn brighter than the other, and I just couldn't do it. What I think was happening is the tubes aren't installed at the exact same angle, so I think one was picking up a reflection of the glowing red inside, and it made it look like it was hot plating because, like I said, I could not get it to replicate the issue. Now, it may look like one tube is sort of maybe burning a little bit brighter than the other one, but it's such a small difference that I could pretty much chalk it up to just a poorly matched set of tubes, and I'm going to be replacing the tubes anyway down the road, so I'm not going to worry about it for now. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so what I'm trying to do right now is pull all the electronics out of the chassis so that I can use the chassis as a template to make my faceplates. In order to do that, I have to remove the circuit boards, and the circuit boards, we don't know if those capacitors are still charged up or not. So you can see all these capacitors right up here, and we don't know if they're holding a charge. A good amplifier will be set to discharge the capacitors when you power it off, but we don't know if this is a good amp or not. So we're going to test them real quick. The same way I tested when I first built the amp. Our voltmeter is set on the highest voltage setting, and we're measuring voltage. I know I got a lot of criticism last time because you guys said it's not the volts that kill you, it's the amps, which is true, but measuring amps with a voltmeter in this sort of scenario is pretty much impossible because you have to wire your voltmeter leads in series with the power source. So you either have to have it connected to power or you have to remove the capacitor, both of which I don't want to do if the capacitor is charged, and then we're definitely dealing with deadly current. So we're not measuring current, we're measuring voltage, and that's just to tell us whether or not they are charged. And anything over 10 volts, assuming that it has current behind it, which we know that it does because it is an amplifier, would be enough to shock us. And like I said, it's not the volts that kill you, it's the amps, I know that, but this is a way that we can measure whether or not they're actually charged. So we'll go ahead and start here with this top capacitor. And we got nothing. Move on to this one, we got nothing. Move on to this one. We've got something on this one. It looks like about 300-ish volts in that one. So definitely quite a bit of power stored up in that capacitor. We're definitely gonna have to safely drain that one. Let's see what else we got here, these two. So it looks as though, based on my readings, that this one here is the only one carrying a charge. So we do need to discharge that. In order to do that safely, we are going to make a discharge tool. So to make our discharge tool, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start with a regular old alligator wire, and we're gonna clip it in half and wire in this resistor and then cover it with king shrink tubing so that it's insulated and safe. All right, so we got our discharge tool is built. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a shot. First, I'm just gonna double check and measure. It was in fact this one, giving us the voltage reading. Yep, so now I've got my shorting stick, so to speak, on two dowel rods, and I'm gonna touch those two together. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10. Okay, now let's try. Where I was getting about 300 volts, I'm getting about 2 volts. So, definitely works good. I wonder if I can get it all the way drained. Absolutely nothing, completely drained. Perfect. So, my stick works. So basically all you need is some copper wire, wire in a resistor. It doesn't matter necessarily how big or little, as long as it's a smaller-ish resistor. And that's just so it doesn't jump a spark. And then you just touch your hot and ground together. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and touch these together for all the other capacitors just in case, to be extra safe, and then I'll be safe to take this apart. Alright, now that the capacitors are drained, let's go ahead and get started building the enclosure. To build my enclosure, I used this 6-foot common pine board that I got from Home Depot for about $13, and I went ahead and cut it to the dimensions I needed for my box, and then using a jig that I made myself for just a few dollars, I went ahead and added some finger joints to it so that it can perfectly match the speaker enclosure that I built a couple months ago. Now I'm not going to bore you with the details about how I made this finger joint jig because I have a video dedicated to it, so if you haven't already seen it, just stick around after this video for the next video in the playlist. Once I was done cutting out my finger joints, I went ahead and glued them together using some Tight Bond wood glue and hammered it nice and tight and let it dry overnight. Then I rounded off the corners with a 1/2-inch roundover bit, did a really lazy sanding job, and pre-installed my hardware so that the holes would be pre-drilled before finishing. For the faceplate, I just used 1/8-inch birch plywood like you've seen me use so many times on my channel. You can get this at your craft shop for about $3 or $4 a sheet. And with my now empty amp chassis, I could trace out where all my buttons and knobs are going to fit through this faceplate. Now I realized when I was drilling through this faceplate that this birch plywood is just too weak for this kind of a job, and I just got too much tear out. So I opted to just cut it out entirely and let the bare metal of the chassis show through, just like every other amp ever built. While I was at it, I went ahead and cut out some decorative holes so that our tubes can breathe nice and easily through that faceplate, and then I was ready to stain. And now, a word from our sponsor. As you guys know, last month I made a video on how you can get Mogami cables for half the price, and my secret were these Speakfriends cables. They are made out of the exact same materials that you would find Mogami cables for. Now, a lot of you guys raised some concern that Mogami cables come with a lifetime warranty, and the Speakfriends cables only came with a 2-year warranty. So, I voiced my concern to Speakfriends about it, and they actually went ahead and rose to the occasion. They are now offering a lifetime warranty on all of their instrument and microphone cables. Speakfriends is a company that I can really get behind because they just offer really high quality products, excellent service, and now lifetime warranties. So expect to see a lot more sponsored content from Speakfriends. In fact, I'm using this cable right here, which only costs $13. Now, it isn't only a 10-foot cable. They're available in 10, 15, and 20-foot lengths. But for my little tiny RV that I now live in, I only need to go from there to there, right? So a 10-foot cable is perfect. So $13 for a high quality lifetime warranty microphone cable, what's not to like? I stained the faceplate Minwax Golden Oak so that it matched the speaker baffle of my homemade speaker cab. Then again, to match my speaker cab, I used Minwax Espresso color inside and out of my amplifier enclosure. Once the stain was dry, I went ahead and installed my reverb tank, flipped it over and installed my amplifier, and then all the rest of the hardware. Now, one thing that I did mention in my original review of the KLD Pilot15 amplifier kit is that it actually does not come with any tubes, okay? KLD was nice enough to send me a set of cheap Chinese tubes just because they wanted me to have a complete unit to demo for you guys, but they were certainly nothing special, and I knew that this amp was capable of way more. So I went ahead and installed what I feel like are the best budget tube upgrades to any tube amplifier. So for the power stage, I went ahead and used these Russian Sovtek power tubes, and man, these things are awesome for just increasing headroom like crazy. They make the amp overall a bit louder, and they make the amp a bit brighter sounding. Now for the preamp tubes, I decided to try something different. One of my viewers, Steven Sullivan, turned me on to these TJ Full Music preamp tubes, okay? These tubes are not that expensive, I think around $60 for a match set, and these tubes sound absolutely premium, okay? They blow JJ and Tungsol out of the water, not even a close competition. I can get some really sizzling overdrives out of that gain stage now. I absolutely love these tubes. Matched up with the Sovtek power tubes, I mean, you get those awesome overdrive tones out of the gain stage and then all the headroom that you need out of the power stage, and it just makes for an incredible sounding amp. Lastly, for the faceplate, to give it a really good finished look, I added this decorative metal sheet that I got at a craft store for about $12. I just traced out the section that I needed, cut it out with some tin snips, and then using some Gorilla Super Glue gel, I just went ahead and glued that sucker right on the back. And then to attach the faceplate to the enclosure, I just added a few strips of Velcro so that I could stick it on there and pull it off whenever I needed to access that amp chassis. And bam, we are done. So all in all, when you add up everything, the KLD Pilot15 amplifier kit with the chassis, my upgraded tubes, all the enclosure and hardware, I've got just over $300 invested in this thing. I've got less than 50 bucks invested in this thing, but if you add in the cost of my Eminence little Texas speaker inside of it, that makes it about $150. So total, we're less than $500 for a boutique setup. Okay, I've got this awesome boutique style vintage Fender clone, and I've got a matching speaker cabinet, and it just looks beautiful together. It sounds beautiful together, and I couldn't be more thrilled with it. So if you want to see my original review of the KLD Pilot15 amplifier kit or how to build your dream speaker cab for less than 50 bucks, stick around in this playlist. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, and I will see you in those videos.